I mentioned in the previous video that if you are going to be administering things in the RT baseline administration section, data sets, things like that, you are going to need write access to that %OSI module. So let's take a look at how you would do that on a system that's got just basically a one Pi server, single Pi server system, in which you need to set up some group representing all the administrators who need read-write access to the %OSI module tree. So we'll be accessing a number of different things to do this, a number of different applications. First of all, let's use our example here of we've got a Paul West. That's a Windows user. We've also got a Christine Koch, and they are both people who we would like to be able to make edits to the RT baseline administration objects. And again, maybe it's belaboring the obvious, but the RT baseline administration objects are these objects in here, data sets and configurations. So the first thing is to make sure that they're both in this Windows group, because that controls whether RT Web Parts allows them access or not. So the two of them need to be in that Windows group first and foremost. Now next up, we need to go into the %OSI section of the module database, and we need to verify, or I should say set, that that is only going to be given write access to the %OSI, or we're going to give write access to %OSI module tree just to a specific group of users. And I'll do that by doing a right click here. I'll choose edit. Now I've already created a group of users that I've called RT Web Part admins. I did that in the security section on users. So I've got a group of users I called RT Web Parts admins. They are going to have read-write access. Now that's not really accomplishing anything yet. We need to make sure that Christine and Paul are members of that group. So if you look at these users and groups, here's our group, RT Web Parts Administrations. Okay. In fact, RT Web Part Administration is only, or admins, they're only going to have, there is only one user member in that. It's a user, just a general purpose user that we're going to map both Paul and Christine to. It's this RT baseline, RT Web Part admin user. So it's a user I just created. I created that just the way you would create normal users, going in here and choosing new user. And then I made that user a member of that group. So what does this tell us so far? Well, it gives us a Pi user who is a member of a group, and that is a group that has write access to the correct link on the module database, the correct tree on the module database. So what remains to be done is to somehow map the incoming users, Paul and Christine, to that Pi user. Well, that should be a trigger there. Whenever you hear the word map users, you should think of trusts. It's through trusts that we map incoming Windows credentials to Pi credentials. And that's what I've done here, is I've created two trusts, one for Christine and one for Paul. And what they do is they simply map those incoming Windows users to that Pi user that I was just mentioned. Yeah, here's the Pi user. That user is a member of the group who has the right permissions. We're saying anybody who comes in from that domain named Christine is going to be mapped to that user. We're also going to map Paul to that same user. There we go. Now, because we map that to that user, and because that user is a member of this group, now if we look at the group membership, RT Web Part admins, the user that we've mapped Paul and Christine to is a member of that group, and because he's a member of that group, he will, because of this configuration here, have read-write access to the proper tree within the module database. So you can see that's the group that that Pi user is a member of, and we have read-write access. So we're going to need to configure, those objects in order to implement, if we want a separate security for just a certain number of people or certain number of users. Now that's why I mentioned that in many cases what people do is they simply allow all users access to edit that, and what they would do for that is just simply make it trust it's going to map all incoming users to a user who has permission to write to this, write to that module within the module database. Now, the final point to make about all this is, of course, you may or you must give your Pi users read access to the tags that you're going to be interested in. So it kind of goes without saying, but when it's all said and done, when the user connects through RT Web Parts, if he's mapped to a Pi user that doesn't have permission to look at these tags, he won't be able to see them. So make sure you've got users, or if you have some restrictions on your Pi tags, that you make sure you've got trusts in place so that the general users will be able to see the tags that they're interested in.